Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are diving into a concept that, honestly, has the potential to change the way you think about success.
We're talking about The Slight Edge. It's a book by Jeff Olson, and it really delves into this idea that achieving massive success comes down to making small, consistent choices every single day.
It's interesting, isn't it? It seems so simple.
Yeah, it's not about some big secret or some complicated system or anything.
No magic formula.
Nope.
It's just about understanding the power of consistency.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, some seriously smart people have endorsed this concept. We're talking Ken Blanchard, Brian Tracy, Darren Hardy, people who really know what they're talking about.
So we know there's something valuable here for sure. And for you, the learner, this deep dive is all about how you can apply the slight edge to really master any new information you're trying to absorb. Think about those aha moments where something just clicks, you know? We're going to help you reach those moments, those breakthroughs, without feeling like you're drowning in a sea of information.
Exactly. And our goal here is to really unpack the core philosophy of the slight edge and see how these principles can be applied to literally any area of your life.
Yeah, we'll be pulling directly from Olson's book, going through his explanations and examples and stories from people who have actually used this philosophy to make real changes in their lives.
Okay, so right off the bat, Olson introduces this core idea, and it's actually deceptively simple. He calls it easy to do, easy not to do.
Oh, I love this. It's so simple, but it's also profound.
It is, isn't it? Because it really highlights that it's the small, everyday decisions, those things that feel like they don't matter much in the moment, they're actually what shapes our long-term success or failure. It's those tiny choices, the ones we make without even thinking about them, that ultimately determine where we end up.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful, because we can all relate to that, right? We've all experienced that feeling of like, oh, it's just one cookie, it's not going to make a difference, or I'll skip the gym today, it's just one day. But then those little choices, they add up over time.
Exactly. And Olson shares some amazing stories in the book of people who had these aha moments about this concept, and it totally transformed their lives. Like Darren Kidd, he read the book and realized he'd been overlooking so many little things that he could be doing differently every day. And then there's Julie Jonak, who lost like 35 pounds in just 3 months just by shifting her focus to these small, controllable daily actions instead of trying to tackle this huge weight loss goal all at once.
And what I find so fascinating about Julie's story is that it highlights the power of focusing on process goals, right? So these are the things you have direct control over, like choosing to eat a healthy meal or going for a walk.
Right, because those are the actions that, when you do them consistently, they lead to those bigger outcome goals, like weight loss.
Exactly. But so often we get fixated on the outcome and forget about the importance of consistently doing those small things that get us there.
Right. And it's not just about physical goals either, you know? This applies to anything where consistent effort is key. Like Leonard Taylor talks about how applying the slight edge really shifted his entire mindset, helping him move away from this struggling student mentality to a more positive and disciplined one.
Oh yeah, and Tim Walter, he saw positive changes in his business, his health, even his relationships, basically every area of his life, just by focusing on these small, consistent actions. And I think what's so inspiring about their stories is that it really creates this sense of being on a positive trajectory.
Exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success by making those small, repeated efforts that compound over time. You build momentum just by doing those little things consistently.
And then you have Ken Hills, he talks about mastering the mundane. And he said this completely shifted his paradigm.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful statement, right? And I think what he's getting at is this idea that real progress isn't necessarily about these big, flashy wins. It's about consistently showing up and doing those small, often overlooked tasks that ultimately make the difference. It's about shifting your focus from seeking those big, exciting moments to appreciating the value of consistent daily effort.
Exactly. And that can be so hard to do in our culture that's obsessed with instant gratification.
Oh, for sure.
But the slight edge really challenges us to reframe our perspective and to see the power in those small, consistent wins. It's about focusing on the journey, not just the destination. And this brings us to one of the most compelling illustrations in the book, the shoe shine woman and the beach bum.
Ah, yes. I love these examples. So vivid, right?
Olson paints this picture of a shoe shine woman who's clearly talented, great at connecting with people, hardworking, but she's essentially building someone else's dream, not her own. And it made him wonder, what if she had just dedicated a little bit of time each day to reading books that could change her life, or spend time with people who were more successful. Imagine the impact that could have had over time.
Right, it really makes you think about the opportunity cost of our daily choices. Even those things that seem harmless or even enjoyable might be preventing us from taking those small steps that would move us towards our own goals.
Absolutely. And then there's the beach bum, which was actually Olson himself at a certain point in his life. He had this pivotal moment where he realized he needed to change his direction. He needed to take control of his life. And what's interesting is he had already achieved a significant amount of success in the solar energy industry, built this huge company, but then he lost it all due to circumstances beyond his control. And this really underscores that even achieving massive success doesn't guarantee lasting success if you don't have the right philosophy, the right mindset guiding your daily actions.
It's a powerful reminder that success isn't a destination, it's a journey, it's an ongoing process. And without that consistent application of positive principles, those big achievements can fade away over time. You've got to keep nurturing that success, keep tending to it, just like you would tend to a garden.
So this leads to a really fundamental question that Olson asks, and it's a question that I think a lot of our listeners can relate to. He says, if there's so much information out there, so many resources to help people succeed, why aren't more people actually succeeding? And I know I've felt that, like I'm bombarded with information all the time, but it can be hard to know how to use it effectively.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the slight edge comes in. It aims to provide that missing piece, that framework for taking all of that knowledge and actually putting it into practice consistently. And it's not about finding some magic bullet or quick fix. It's about understanding and harnessing the power of consistent, simple disciplines. It's about playing the long game, understanding that real, lasting change takes time.
It's a long-term approach, a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly.
And Olson outlines this really clear chain. Philosophy leads to attitude, which drives actions, which create results, and ultimately it shapes your entire lifestyle. And I think this is such a helpful way to visualize how our underlying beliefs influence every single aspect of our lives.
It's a powerful reminder that our thoughts really do create our reality.
Yeah, and think about it. A positive philosophy, a belief in your own ability to grow and the power of small actions, that naturally leads to a more positive attitude.
Right. And that positive attitude then fuels consistent positive actions. And over time, those actions, they compound, just like interest in a savings account, and they produce positive results, which eventually become part of your lifestyle, becomes who you are.
It's a positive spiral.
Exactly. And of course, the opposite is true too. A negative philosophy can create a downward spiral where you start doubting yourself, you make choices that sabotage your success, and you end up stuck in a negative cycle.
It's a really powerful reminder to be mindful of those underlying beliefs and make sure they're serving you, helping you move towards what you want. And this brings us to another important concept, the myth of overnight success, those so-called quantum leaps.
Oh yeah, we love to romanticize those stories of sudden breakthroughs. But the slight edge argues that those big wins are almost always the result of a whole lot of small, often unseen effort over an extended period. It's about understanding that those big, flashy moments, those quantum leaps, they're actually the culmination of countless small steps taken consistently.
It's like, that saying, a watched pot never boils. We're so impatient, we're constantly looking for immediate feedback and results. But when you're first applying the slight edge, those results can be really subtle, almost invisible. It's like planting a tree.
Right, you don't plant a seed and expect a huge oak tree to sprout up the next day.
You have to be patient, you have to trust the process.
Yeah, and it requires a shift in focus. Instead of looking for that instant gratification, you've got to embrace the idea that those consistent small efforts, even when they seem like they're not making a difference, are actually creating massive change over time.
And this ties into the power of compounding. We tend to think about this concept in terms of finances, like how investing a small amount of money consistently over time can lead to significant wealth down the road. But the slight edge takes this principle and applies it to so many other areas of life.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Because it makes you realize that those small, consistent improvements you make in your health, your relationships, your knowledge, they all compound over time, leading to much bigger results than you might expect.
It's like, imagine if you had a friend who started saving for retirement a few years earlier than you, even if they put in less money overall. The power of compounding means they could end up with way more money in the long run. And it's the same with everything else. That's why it's so important to start those positive habits early and be consistent, because even small delays can make a huge difference in the long run.
Yeah, it really highlights that time is a powerful multiplier, and it's either working for you or against you, so you might as well make it work for you, right?
Absolutely. And Olson talks about this idea of plant, cultivate, harvest. In our fast-paced, instant gratification world, we want to skip straight to the harvest.
Right, we want the rewards without putting in the work.
You want the results without the process.
Mm-hmm.
But we forget about that vital cultivate stage, the part that requires time and consistent effort. And that's where the real magic happens, where those seeds we plant really start to take root and grow.
Yeah, it's in that consistent nurturing, that consistent effort, that things really blossom.
And Olson uses this really vivid analogy of a massive flywheel.
I love this analogy. It's so helpful for understanding momentum.
So at first, it takes a ton of effort just to get that flywheel moving even a little bit.
Pushing and pushing, and it feels like nothing's happening.
Exactly. But with each consistent push, it starts to turn, slowly at first. But then gradually it picks up momentum. It starts to spin faster and faster, and it becomes easier and easier to keep it going. And eventually, that flywheel is spinning with incredible speed and power, and it generates these lasting results.
And I think that's such a great analogy for how we build success in any area of life. It takes that initial push, that consistent effort to overcome that inertia and get things moving. But once you build momentum, it becomes easier and easier to keep going, and the results start to come faster and faster.
It's like, think about learning a new language.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect example.
At first, it's so hard. You're struggling with every word and every grammar rule.
And you're like, am I ever gonna get this?
Right. But if you keep practicing consistently, eventually it starts to click, it starts to become easier, and suddenly you're having conversations and understanding things you never thought you could.
It's amazing how that works, right?
It really is. And
Yep.
that's the power of the slight edge in action. So how do we get that flywheel moving?
Right, how do we start building that momentum?
Olson says it all begins with that first small step, and he calls it starting with a penny.
So it's not about making some huge drastic change all at once.
No, it's about starting small, taking that first tiny action, no matter how insignificant it might seem in the moment. It's about breaking that initial resistance and starting the process of positive compounding.
It's like that example of a penny doubling every day, right?
Yes, at first it seems like nothing is happening, but after a while, the growth becomes exponential.
Yeah, and he makes it even more relatable by talking about the idea of just improving by 1% each day, or even just 0.3%.
That's what I love about it. It makes success seem so attainable, so manageable. We don't have to make these massive leaps overnight. We can just focus on making small, consistent progress. And over time, those small steps add up to something truly remarkable.
And we see this penny power in action in the book with the story of Al Lewis.
Oh, this story is so incredible.
It's truly inspiring. So he had a stroke, and the doctors thought he might never walk again. But he didn't give up. He focused on making these tiny daily improvements. Like first he moved a finger, then his hand, then his arm. And over time, those small, consistent efforts led to a full recovery.
He literally rewired his brain.
It's amazing. And I think it's such a powerful reminder that even when we're facing massive challenges, focusing on those small, controllable actions, those little wins, can make a huge difference over time. It's about having that faith that those tiny steps are actually creating something bigger, even when you can't see it right away.
It's like the difference between playing the lottery and building a business.
Right,
The
exactly.
people who play the lottery are hoping for that one lucky break, that sudden windfall.
But successful people, they understand that success is built through consistent effort, through showing up and doing the work every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring.
And another powerful story that Olson shares is about William Wilberforce and his decades-long fight to abolish slavery in Britain.
Yeah, this is another example of the power of long-term commitment, the power of not giving up even when progress is slow and it seems like you're not making a difference.
So for 18 years, his bills were defeated. Can you imagine the discouragement?
Oh, I can't even imagine. But he didn't give up. He kept pushing, he kept fighting, and finally, just a few days before he passed away, the bill to abolish slavery was passed.
It's amazing. It's a testament to the power of persistence, and it's a reminder that meaningful change often takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And I think it's also a reminder that one person can make a difference, even when the odds seem stacked against them.
Yeah, it's inspiring, isn't it? And it really drives home the point that even those small, consistent actions can lead to massive change in the world. It's like the one small step on the moon landing.
Right.
That iconic moment, it was the culmination of years of effort, thousands of tiny steps taken by so many people behind the scenes.
And that's what so often goes unnoticed, right? We see those big moments of success, but we forget about all the small, consistent actions that led to them.
Exactly. And that's the thing about the slight edge. It's so subtle. It's so often invisible in the moment. The difference between success and failure often comes down to those tiny choices we make every day that seem like they don't matter much at the time.
But it's the accumulation of those choices, the compounding effect, that leads to those vastly different outcomes down the road.
So it's really about paying attention to those small choices, being intentional about them, and understanding that they have a much bigger impact than we realize.
And that brings us to the importance of simply showing up.
Yeah, being present, being consistent. Like Olson talks about Amber's experience in a college class. Just by consistently attending and studying, she found herself in this small group of students who really excelled. Simply because they were there, they were engaged, they were putting in the effort.
And it's so easy to underestimate the power of that, right? Just being present, showing up consistently, that in itself can be a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And there's a great story about a baseball pitcher who consistently practiced the fundamentals, even when he wasn't considered a star player.
And what happened?
Well, that consistent effort in those seemingly ordinary things led to him exceeding everyone's expectations and achieving a level of success that nobody, including himself, thought was possible.
And I think that speaks to the power of not underestimating the importance of those basic fundamentals, those core principles.
Right, exactly. But of course, it's not always easy to stay on track.
Right, life happens.
And Olson talks about these cuckoos.
Oh, the cuckoos, yeah.
These are the distractions and negative influences that can really throw us off course. And I think this is where it becomes so important to be mindful of who and what we allow to influence our thinking.
Yeah, and Olson shares this great advice from Carol, who says, don't let those dimmers define how you see yourself.
I love that.
It's about recognizing that those negative voices, those naysayers, they don't get to define you. You get to choose who you listen to.
And this connects to a concept that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich, this idea of building a mastermind group. Surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people who uplift you and help you stay focused on your goals.
Yeah, having that network of positive influence can make such a difference, especially when you're facing challenges or feeling discouraged.
And it's okay to be selective about who you allow into that inner circle.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's this quote from Arthur Schopenhauer that really resonated with me. He said, "All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident."
Ooh, that's good.
So when you're doing something different, something that challenges the status quo, expect to encounter resistance. Expect those cuckoos to show up, but don't let them discourage you. Don't let them shake your belief in what you're doing.
It's about having that inner conviction, that unshakable belief in yourself and your vision, even when others don't get it yet.
And speaking of challenges, we can't ignore the fact that life throws us curveballs.
Oh, yeah.
Olson talks about embracing the funk, those inevitable setbacks and difficult times. He encourages us to see those challenges not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow.
I love that reframing. It's so empowering.
It is, isn't it? It's about developing that mental toughness, that resilience, so you can bounce back from those challenges even stronger.
It's about seeing those obstacles as stepping stones on your path to success, not as roadblocks.
And this brings us to the 4th key principle of the slight edge: long-term commitment. Showing up consistently with a positive attitude needs to be a long-term commitment, not just a short-term fling. It's about understanding that real, lasting change takes time.
It's not a quick fix, it's a way of life.
Exactly. Think about Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers.
Oh yeah, the 10,000-hour rule.
That's it. It takes time and consistent effort to really master anything. And it's the same with building a successful life, building a successful business, building fulfilling relationships. It takes that consistent dedication, that willingness to play the long game.
And Olson shares the story of Trey Honeycutt, who lost a significant amount of weight not by going on some crazy diet or doing some extreme workout program, but by consistently making small, healthy choices over a period of months.
Yeah, he didn't try to overhaul his entire life overnight.
Yeah.
He just focused on those small, manageable changes that he could sustain over time. And those small changes added up to some pretty incredible results.
And I think that's a really important point. It's about finding those sustainable habits, those small things you can do consistently without feeling overwhelmed or deprived.
And this brings us to the distinction between the price of neglect and the price of commitment.
Oh, yeah, this is a powerful concept.
Olson argues that the long-term consequences of neglecting those small positive actions are way greater than the short-term effort it takes to actually do them.
It's like we often focus on the immediate cost of doing something, but we forget about the much larger cost of not doing it.
Exactly. And he shares this amazing story about Pablo Felix, who overcame deafness and achieved incredible success by applying the slight edge principles.
And his story is such a powerful illustration of the idea that the price of commitment, the effort it takes to make those positive choices, it pales in comparison to the potential cost of inaction, the potential for unrealized potential.
So it's really about choosing your price, choosing your struggle.
And I think most people would agree that the price of commitment, even though it might feel challenging in the moment, is a much better investment in the long run.
So to recap, Olson lays out the 7 slight edge principles. Show up, be consistent, good attitude, committed for a long period of time, desire faith, willing to pay the price, and integrity.
It's a great framework for putting the slight edge philosophy into action.
And he touches on slight edge integrity, using Kobe Bryant as an example. That relentless dedication to his craft, that willingness to practice harder than anyone else, even when nobody was watching, that's integrity in action.
Yeah, it's about showing up and doing the work, even when it's not easy, even when nobody's giving you a pat on the back. It's about doing the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do.
And to illustrate how these small choices lead to big differences over time, he uses this famous quote from Robert Frost. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Oh, I love that quote.
He talks about life being like a curve, either trending upwards towards success or downwards towards failure. And there's really no staying in place. There's no neutral ground. We're always moving in one direction or the other, even if it doesn't always feel like it.
And that's such a powerful visual, isn't it?
It is.
It makes you realize that even inaction is a choice, and it often leads to that downward curve.
And he contrasts the mindset of people on that upward curve, those who take responsibility for their lives, who embrace challenges, who are constantly learning and growing, with those on that downward curve, who tend to blame others, who make excuses, who stay stuck in their comfort zone.
Yeah, and that's a really key distinction. It's about taking ownership of your life, taking ownership of your choices and your results, and understanding that you have the power to change your direction at any time.
And Tracy Broughton's story is such a powerful example of this. She overcame so many challenges, so much adversity, and achieved incredible success just by consistently doing those small things and taking responsibility for her life.
Her story is so inspiring. It's a reminder that no matter what challenges we're facing, we always have a choice in how we respond to them.
And Olson emphasizes the importance of living in the present moment, being mindful of the decisions you're making right now, because these are the slight edge decisions that are shaping your future. He uses this simple analogy of the 2 lists people sometimes keep about their spouses: one list of everything that's wrong and one list of everything that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes you think, where are you focusing your attention? Are you dwelling on the negative, or are you consciously choosing to cultivate the positive?
It's about being intentional with your focus and choosing to water those seeds of goodness, those positive aspects you want to grow.
And this leads to this really important realization. There's no such thing as treading water in life. We're constantly in motion, either improving or declining in every area. And it's up to us to take an honest look at our current trajectory and make sure we're headed in the direction we want to go.
Yeah, it's about that continuous self-assessment, that willingness to be honest with ourselves about where we're at and where we want to be.
And this brings us to a really encouraging perspective from George Leonard on the concept of mastery. He says that mastery isn't just for the gifted or those who started early. It's accessible to anyone who's willing to start and keep going.
I love that. It's so empowering.
It is, isn't it? It takes the pressure off feeling like you have to be naturally talented or have some kind of head start. It's about embracing the journey, the process of learning and growing.
Yeah, it's about setting foot on that path and just staying on it one step at a time.
And he uses this really relatable example of learning to walk. As babies, we fall down countless times, but we don't give up. We keep trying, and eventually we master it.
We're hardwired for persistence, for resilience. We just have to tap back into that innate ability.
And the really encouraging thing is, it's just as easy to develop habits that lead to success as it is to fall into habits that lead to failure. It really comes down to those small choices we make every day.
Yeah, it's like flipping a coin. Heads, you choose the path of growth and success. Tails, you choose the path of stagnation or decline. The power is in our hands.
And Olson quotes Napoleon Hill on the importance of having that definiteness of purpose, knowing what you want and having a burning desire to achieve it. And then he introduces this really powerful idea. The size of the problem determines the size of the person.
I love that. It's about seeing those challenges, those obstacles, not as something to fear or avoid, but as opportunities to grow and expand our capacity.
Exactly. And he describes a problem as just being the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And he says that gap is going to be resolved one way or another. You can either actively work towards closing that gap by taking those slight edge steps towards your goals, or you can let those negative influences and inaction pull you further away.
It's that proactive versus reactive approach to life. Are you going to take control and shape your destiny, or are you going to let circumstances dictate your path?
And he circles back to Schopenhauer's 3 stages of truth. But this time he applies it to those success and failure curves. He reminds us that at the beginning, those curves look almost identical.
Right, which is why it's so easy to dismiss the importance of those small choices in the beginning.
Exactly. It's easy to think, oh, it's just one day, it doesn't matter. But it's the accumulation of those days, the compounding effect over time that leads to those massive differences down the road.
And that's why it's so important to trust the process. To have faith that those small, consistent efforts are actually making a difference, even when you can't see the results right away.
And Olson shares this really powerful experience he had attending funerals, and he realized how few people are truly deeply mourned.
Ooh, that's profound.
It is. And it made him think about the kind of impact he wanted to have on the world, the kind of legacy he wanted to leave behind. And it connected to this bigger idea of living a life that really matters, a life where you're willing to do the things that others aren't, a life that makes a difference.
It's about living with intention and purpose, not just drifting through life on autopilot.
And he cautions against this obsession with fast results, quoting Peter Senge, who said, "There are natural intrinsic rates of growth in all systems. So trying to force things to happen faster than they're meant to can actually be counterproductive."
Right. It's about respecting those natural rhythms, those natural processes, and understanding that real sustainable growth takes time.
It's about nurturing those seeds, not trying to force them to sprout before they're ready.
And he encourages us to embrace the power of completion, finishing those tasks we've started so we can release that mental energy they often drain.
It's about closing those loops, creating that sense of accomplishment, and freeing up mental space for new things.
Yeah, it's amazing how much lighter you feel when you clear out that mental clutter.
And of course, we can't talk about the slight edge without emphasizing the profound impact of habits. Our habits really do shape our character and ultimately our destiny.
And the great thing is, we have the power to choose our habits. We have the power to create those automatic behaviors that support our success.
Olson suggests some practical ways to track those slight edge actions, like keeping a journal or finding an accountability partner.
Yeah, having that external support and accountability can make a big difference, especially when you're first establishing those new habits.
And he shares a really inspiring story about the Melia family, who saw a 1,000% increase in their income in just 5 years by consciously applying these slight edge principles.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's amazing, right? It just shows what's possible when you commit to those small, consistent actions and you trust the process.
It's proof that the slight edge really works.
And then he talks about investing in yourself, and that goes way beyond just finances. He quotes Frank Lloyd Wright, who said, "Every great building is a statement of the philosophy of its creator." And he explains that the things we create in the world, they're all reflections of our underlying philosophy.
It's about cultivating that inner game, those beliefs and perspectives that shape our actions and our outcomes.
And he stresses the importance of continuous learning.
Oh, yeah. Learning is a lifelong journey.
It's not just about formal education, it's about being curious, being open to new ideas, and constantly seeking to expand our knowledge and understanding.
And in today's rapidly changing world, that commitment to continuous learning is more important than ever.
He points out that, sadly, most adults don't read another book after they finish high school. And he challenges us to make time for seminars, audiobooks, informative reading, any way we can to keep learning and growing.
And he brings back that example of the shoeshine woman, imagining how different her life could have been if she had just dedicated a little bit of time each day to reading different kinds of books.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to shape our own minds, to expand our own horizons, simply by choosing to engage with new information and new ideas.
And he breaks learning down into 3 key areas: learning by studying, learning by doing, and learning by modeling.
That's a really helpful framework. So studying is about absorbing knowledge, doing is about applying that knowledge in the real world, and modeling is about learning from others who have already achieved what we're aiming for.
Yeah, it's about combining those different approaches to create a well-rounded learning experience.
And he quotes Confucius, who said, "Knowledge is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do."
So it's not just about knowing things, it's about putting that knowledge into action.
And he talks about this rhythm of learning, studying something new, and then immediately putting it into practice, which then informs your future actions.
Yeah, it's that cyclical process of learning, applying, reflecting, and refining.
And he uses these analogies of driving a car and launching a rocket to illustrate the importance of course correction, making those small adjustments along the way to stay on track towards your goals.
Right, because it's rare that we have a perfectly clear path laid out in front of us.
There are always going to be obstacles and detours, and we have to be willing to adjust course as needed.
And he talks about this ready, fire, aim approach, which is essentially about taking action, learning from that action, and then adjusting course as needed.
Yeah, it's about being flexible and adaptable.
Yeah.